actually does. Like it's like 4 or 5 points. It's good.
I'll email you back.
Yeah, no, you just read it and just like pass it forward because I don't know if you get video for us. It was good.
We should really blast it, maybe. I was like, and I want to learn to read again. Can I share something with the board before the camera? They're on.
James ran out for a minute. Happy New Year.
Hello.
So, just there's a letter from a resident included in your folder tonight that I reviewed and read and replied to. This is really my reply. Basically, all I said was I would share the information with the board on how the board is with the council not to take official positions on items that are not going to be pertaining to schools. You know,
We had that. We got that.
So I replied, but I also told him that would be happy.
He lost. He shut the lights out.
And I'm telling him.
Bayport shut the lights out. I'll tell you, it's been a little feisty lately. Last week, he had a little trouble tonight, too.
So why don't we make a statement before the game?
We do. According to the Section 11 Code of Conduct, it basically...
If you read the rationale,
It was the official was involved. Let's say this. He thought the show was about him, gesturing to the crowd. I spoke to him half time. I said, the official. I said, this game is not about you. It's about players. You're handling it professional. He got multiplication at halftime, right before the half. Karen. So he got it.
everybody's watching the live stream tonight.
Hello, folks at home.
It was the following.
Can I have a motion to call to order the work session of January 11, 2018? Motion by Mr. Tomio, second by Mrs. Weiss. All in favor? 4-0. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to all those viewing from home, and thank you to the administrative team for sacrificing their time tonight to join us for a discussion of an important topic. I have to commend the board on the work that you have been doing as a team to really focus your understanding and process of goal setting and how we base things on our mission, our vision, and then our strategic goals for the year. This board has invested a lot of time over the summer, and then again on the retreat that took place in Lake Placid to really have a better conceptual understanding of the purpose for goals, how to measure goals, and how to sustain the work that surrounds goal implementation. What I charge the leadership team with doing is using the adopted goals that were set by the Board of Education earlier this year to develop their own personal goals for their buildings, for their departments, for our students, for our faculty. And what the presentation has been prepared for you tonight is a synthesis of that work. So each of the administrators in the district played key roles in making sure that the work that's happening in our classrooms and with our faculty is a reflection of the priorities that have been set by the Board of Education. So tonight, led by Mrs. Hull, but certainly contributed to by each member of our leadership team, not only those who are present tonight, we have a very thorough review that hopefully will give the board and the community a good sense of the priorities that are taking place in each of our classrooms and each of our buildings. So I'd like to call upon Mrs. Hull to begin to facilitate that discussion, and I know that we'll be hearing from many members of the team.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Bossert. This evening, as Dr. Bossert mentioned, I'm very pleased to be joined by representatives of our leadership team, Mrs. Brzezinski, Dr. Sapienza, Dr. Toscano, Mrs. Milan, Mrs. Fine, Mrs. Kelly Gorman, Mr. Shanahan, and Mr. Tranquino. And together we'll provide information on the goals for the year. And before we get started, I just want to thank them for all their efforts in preparing for our conversation and for joining us this evening. I'd like to begin the conversation with our mission statement because it really plays such an important role in creating a high-quality and successful learning organization for our students. And by keeping it at the forefront of our work, it determines our direction and communicates our purpose. Dr. Bossert shared with the administrative team the goals of the Board of Education that were developed to drive the priorities of the school year. He emphasized developing meaningful goals to achieve the identified priorities and also connecting our goals to supporting student success, as mentioned in our mission statement, academically, emotionally, and socially, and also the theme that was established for our school year, teaching the whole child. Just to give you a little background on what our process was, we worked collaboratively, establishing both our own goals and then shared goals because there are so many different people involved in implementing a goal. But across the board, we were focused on supporting goals set by the board and driving our mission statement forward. Because there are multiple aspects to each goal, you will see at the bottom of the slide when we get to the goals that some key collaborators listed, because really the building level, district level, and cabinet level administrators are all part of achieving our goals. You'll notice that some goals will have an immediate and direct impact on students, such as the Teachers College Reading and Writing Project or the Behavior Intervention System matrices. Other initiatives will have future dividends for students, maybe through enhanced teacher practice, or perhaps improvements in our resources or our school facilities. And I'd just like to mention that Dr. Toscano, as part of her district level administrative internship this summer, worked with Dr. Bossert and myself as well as we planned for the goal development that we would be doing with our administrative team, and it was great to have an intern. The next step was really a very many-week process during which administrators and cabinet leaders established goals and created action plans and identified either quantitative measures, that might be something like a specific change in a reading level, or qualitative measures where we were identifying what observable evidence we would be looking for. Perhaps it might be a new strategy as a result of professional development, or the effective implementation of a proposed program. So the cabinet and leadership team developed 45 goals to support the 5 goals of the Board of Education. We were perhaps ambitious in that our goals were far-ranging, and they did result in that 90-page document that we had shared. However, they do represent the priorities that we are working on and which will be achieved through this year and in multiple years in some cases. Looking forward, perhaps next year, we may limit the number of priorities we express through the goal-setting process to more closely align to a very concise, measurable goal definition. On the other hand, I know that the important, actionable priority initiatives that support our mission will continue, whether they're tucked in with the goals or as standalone initiatives. And that continues out the list of our goals. So next we're going to take a look at a few of the goals that were established and hopefully provide you with some insight on our process and intention. The specific goal or goals of the board supported by the administrative goal are indicated on each slide. And our principals and directors are going to take us through, beginning with Mrs. Milan and Dr. Toscano.
While we have a moment of transition, I was remiss in not sharing with the board that we do have 2 absent members at the dais today. Mrs. Wilkinson is in Montauk at the annual convention for special ed directors, learning lots of journeys. Hopefully she will bring back that knowledge base with her. And also, as you're aware, Alita was not able to attend the meeting tonight, as her family is grieving the loss of her father-in-law. Today was a funeral, and our thoughts and prayers are, of course, with not only her family. Sorry.
Good evening. How is everybody today? We want to thank you because the first time we were able to share our goals was a really exciting night for Alyssa and I think for the whole team. We had never really shared our goals with the board before in our careers. This is our second time, and again, we're pleased to share with you. Alyssa and I are standing here together because we really work very closely to make K through 5 seamless. So we understand that when you have a goal, it has to start at kindergarten and work its way through 5th grade. We also want the students and the parents to adjust very well with the expectations, because mostly children that are siblings are in either one of our buildings when they're in the early years.
So our first goal is that all K-5 ENL students will show 1 year of growth in reading as measured by benchmark assessments. So we chose the subgroup, the ENL subgroup, because this is a population that over our 3.5 years we've noticed has not made as much growth as the general population. So we figured we would focus on them and keep a closer eye on our ENL population. And so some of the things that we're doing to support this goal is that in both buildings we do have academic intervention. And that doesn't mean that all ENL students are receiving academic intervention. It means that if they are receiving academic intervention, they are receiving that careful watch as all of the ENL students are. Our focus this year is small group instruction in the classroom. So the ENL students, whether it's with an ENL teacher or their regular classroom teacher, are receiving small group instruction, and that's our focus as well with Teachers College. We have had an academic intervention parent meeting as well as an ENL parent bingo night.
Which we sold as a bingo night, but really it was a night to bring all the families together to share this goal with them and to share our resources that we have they can access to help their children. One being the videos.
So, and another thing is that Denise already started with a YouTube read aloud that's posted on the website. So she does a read aloud, and it's something that the students can watch. If their parents cannot read to them in English, they can hear a story in English. And the next one, I'm going to do one. I know our ENL teachers are going to as well.
It was originally on my webpage, and then we decided through Danielle at your school to call it Good Night Reads. So it will be on the district webpage, so it's easy to access for all parents.
So, and night would be K-N-I-G-H-T. We also are providing our ENL teachers with targeted professional development, and our ENL teachers are providing our staff with targeted professional development on ENL students and their growth in reading. So there are a few things that Harley and Boyd are doing differently. Harley has the Oscar program, and Boyd has Homework Club and Reading Champions, and these also support our students that are reading below grade level, with the focus again on watching our ENL students. So we passed out a chart to you, and this chart is what we're using to track growth. So the first column is the start level. If you look, I put an arrow next to C. A year of growth for a C is that they will grow to an H or an I. And I also put an arrow next to the O, and a year of growth for an O, a child starting at a level O, will grow to an S by the end of the year.
And that's how we do it. Our next goal was to create a PBIS program. To support social, emotional, and academic learning. This is really a K through 12 initiative. It is a state initiative. We have all worked together as a district-wide committee. We all came together first to decide really what values that we wanted to concentrate on that could be a universal language.
Dr. Scott, I'm sorry, can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Yes.
Would the board prefer to hear the presentation from each member of the team in their entirety for their building and then ask questions, or would you prefer to ask any questions or make comments based upon each goal? It's up to you.
Personally, I think it's helpful to ask the question while it's fresh and we're thinking about it. Is that okay with you? Yeah.
Why don't we just go back to the A&L targets, and then we can open up for questions.
Okay. Yeah, we'll keep it going. Any questions from the board on that?
I do have a question. I love the,
Is that going on? Okay, thank you. I love that read aloud on the YouTube, and I guess just my concern is you're attracting a population. Does that population have access to computers? Have you done?
We asked that question at
Okay.
E&L bingo night, so we had them come as a family game night because we also want to bond, but we wanted to see what type of technology.
Yeah,
they had.
absolutely.
They all have phones,
Perfect, perfect.
so.
Excellent. And I think Dr. Bossert would be a great reader too.
I'd love to. Thank you for inviting me, Mrs. Weiss.
Yes.
Any other questions? I have a question. So the reason why you chose this population to concentrate on is that this is a group of students that in the past hasn't progressed the way you like when looking at the data. But all students get intervened with if there's issues. This is just a particular goal that you're looking at this year to try to bring this up to speed, like in comparison with other students. With this chart, do the parents of all students understand what a year of growth is from what to what? Do they get this? I would think for a parent it would be, oh, they have to go from C to D and that's a year of growth.
They won't get this, but
Okay.
during our intervention meeting, we give a different chart to the parents, which basically says in September, this is where your child should be in kindergarten. The other piece of it is really the levels for the children. The levels that we're labeling children are for the teachers to teach the children and not necessarily to really label a child. We give the parents the levels so that they know when they're going to the library that they're not expecting that their child's in first grade and that they can get a first grade level book and that their child will be able to read it if they're below grade level or if they're above grade level.
So when we're looking at these levels, that's the that Fontes Pinnell book levels. So they know that they're starting at a certain level, and by the end of the year they should be at this level, but not necessarily. It's more guided for the teachers to be guided on how they teach at certain levels.
Yes.
Okay.
And also, of course, our goal is to have every child
Of course.
grow a year's worth of reading, and we've seen through our numbers we've done so well. But now,
Right.
now we're seeing where we need to really tweak it, and this population just needs a little extra support in different areas, hopefully to bring those up.
When we looked at the students that were below grade level or not making a year of growth, the E&L population was glaring.
Stuck out. Okay.
So that's why we want to spend more time focusing on really looking at the data, really looking at what they're doing within their small groups and why they're not making the growth that the rest of the population is making.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you. Anything else?
I'll have questions, not yet.
Should I be nervous about your questions?
Never be nervous about it. They're usually fun. They're big softballs.
Okay, so I'll start all over again, just so that you know. And I'm going to go through what the acronym really means, but our goal is to create a PBIS program to support social, emotional, and academic learning for students, and to reduce challenging behaviors and promote positive ones. This is a state initiative. It is also a K through 12 initiative. It is a positive behavior incentive system. Another acronym we have so many of. And we were charged with some really fun and interesting tasks. The first was to come together as a district committee to decide on the values that we wanted to focus on. K through 12, we will focus on respect, responsibility, and relationships, the 3 R's. To keep it simple. However, it really wasn't simple, but that was a nice way for us to carry it K through 12. Then we went back in each of our respective buildings, and again, we did really mostly K through 5, so ours are very similar. We put together a matrix. And a matrix basically designates the areas in the school, and then what those behaviors would look like underneath those values. So that matrix makes up the entire building, as well as the bus, and behaviors that are expected. In order to make this, I guess, learner-friendly, and to promote it in a better way, in each area, like a poster or the matrix pertains to, individual posters were made. So our students, our teachers, our faculty, our parents are all aware when they're in a certain area what the expected behaviors are, and we're all using a common language. We were able to, we share a wonderful social worker, Michelle Kratz, so she really helped unify this. And together, the psychologist and the social worker put together a beautiful assembly that was, you know, put on for the entire school. And if you look at your goals, we left you the movies. So you can see the silly little movies that the staff made to teach the students. I felt it was very well received, and the students are really excited. And in order to keep them excited, whenever we see them doing something positive or above what they were expected to do, they receive either a sticker or a card. I didn't bring my cards.
They have the same insignia on it, but this is the
United
that they get. And then a card that gets posted on a wall in the cafeteria with their name and their teacher's name.
So in Harley, they get their sticker, and then they get their name put up on the cafeteria wall. In Boyd, they get their card, they get a little token system, and then we keep track of the students and how many cards they receive. So if my students receive 5 cards, they get a personal call to their parents from me. In addition, we've also made a universal behavior incident report. So now we can collect data on student incidents and be able to really address what those students need in order to increase positive behavior. So now no child gets to slip through the cracks because we keep the data on that child or various children throughout the year. And our goal with our support teams is that they look at those incentive reports and we try to put together programs to alleviate the negative behavior.
Questions? Mrs. Marcus, hang on. Go ahead.
I just want to say I know that my kids like this incentive program, especially at Harley. It's a big hit. I just have a question with the behavior incident reports, because I didn't know that happened. Hopefully it means my children haven't had one. But that's my question. Do you notify the parents if there is an incident report at one time? Like at each incident?
It would depend on what the incident was. If there was a fighting incident, well then yes, we're going to contact the parents.
If it's like pushing in the hall, you know, something more minor that, you know, you're not respecting the personal space of your friend walking to lunch, or
So I
would we get notified or no?
If a child is brought to my office and I see a child, I always will call a parent if I'm meeting with a child. Even if it ends up being nothing, the parent will receive a phone call so that they know the child is in my office and they don't go home and say, oh, I had to talk to Mrs. Milan today, and then the parent is home and trying to call me at school and I'm not there. Why did you talk to my child today and I didn't receive a phone call? So they'll always receive a phone call. So going to the incident, if there's an incident report and somebody needs to meet with that child, then there will be a phone call.
And if it's a pattern of behavior, then parents would be notified?
Of course,
Okay.
parents are notified. We sit together as a team and find a way that we can help that child undo those bad habits.
So in the past, how is this different from what you've done in the past? Was it in the teachers, the incident reports, was it under the teacher's domain to contact the parent? I would imagine in the past, if you had a kid come to your office, you would have called the parent anyhow.
Right. The only difference now is that the goal here is on the positive behavior. So it's on receiving those cards, receiving those stickers. The behavior incentive reports, we always collected the information, just not on a universal document.
No, I'm talking about the incident reports.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yes.
That's what I'm talking about.
Incident reports
would document,
would give us
we would
information.
document, but it was never uniform.
Okay.
So if the information was sent from 2nd grade to 3rd grade, they might have had something different or a different way of looking at it. So now it's just, if we have incident reports to pass on from Harley to Boyd, they know what they're looking at.
Okay, so it goes forward with the child, so you get a more comprehensive picture
Grade.
as opposed to in the past where it was just internal
Or you
within
would-
that grade.
We would have meetings where they would,
Mhm.
identify certain students and tell us certain things, but now we're able to really keep track and show what positive behavior incentives they put into place to make that child successful, so we can continue the same work when they come to Boyd.
Okay. And I know this is, you're brand new with this. However, do you have any like data or positive results? Have you seen any outcomes from it that you can say, wow, this is really working?
I love seeing a sub-para at lunch duty say, okay, come on up here. What are you not following that we know is expected? And in a nice way, because it's only said in a positive way. It's not saying you will not, right? It's saying what it looks like.
And what I've also seen is the
Bus incidents have decreased slightly, and if there is an incident, then it's the same thing. It's those questions. You take them over to the chart, you look at what the different things that they're supposed to do to be respectful, responsible, and form relationships, and you ask them, what did you do and what didn't you do? And they're able to verbalize as opposed to saying, I don't know.
Nice, thank you.
Are bus drivers aware of this program so they could give a sticker to a child or no?
Not yet.
Okay.
We spoke about it, but this is since it is very new and we just launched it, there are things that we need to add to it, but everybody in the building, the custodians, the security guard, the
Lunch
teachers, the lunch help, everybody in the building is allowed to give out stickers. It's just we haven't gotten the bus on board yet.
I just want to start off first by saying I am so happy from 5 years ago, let's say, to now, that we have been able to bring the night to Harley, to Boyd. Out in the other communities, we were Glen forever. Now the kids are starting to become knights when they're young. They're moving up to middle school. They're coming to the high school. Elwood's becoming the knights, and I'm glad that our mascot is actually, showing who we are. So I love the stickers. I love that we do the knights, and I think that's great branding on our behalf. And,
uniform night, we might add.
yes, and Mr. Knight's great too. I just have a quick question. I'm sure there's a simple answer for it. So the younger kids, they all come in at different learning growths and have different needs. So if someone comes in at an A and someone comes in at a C, how do you mainstream them? When I say mainstream, how do you teach the class how does the teacher teach the class to say everyone's different needs? Okay, some kids are learning faster, some kids that are developing, some kids that are speaking a different language. So how is it implemented in the classroom? I know that some are pulled out, some have one-on-one, but overall, is there a goal set?
That's a great question, and that's why we have Teachers College Reading and Writing Workshop. But because I have an ex-staff developer here, I'm going to have her explain the mini lesson and breaking off.
So basically, the teachers are teaching the same lesson to the entire class. It's an 8 to 10 minute mini lesson. The reason for the 8 to 10 minutes is so that the remainder of the 35 minutes or so is spent individualized. So the students are reading on their own level, or they're writing on their own level, choosing their own paper. And this is K all the way through 5th grade, and now they're doing 6, 7, 8. So what ends up happening is if you do have a child who's, say, in 2nd grade that's reading on a level D, which is the end of kindergarten level, they will have level D books, and the teachers will be pulling them individually or in a small group based upon what they need on that particular level.
I knew there was an easy answer, thanks.
Got it.
And I just wanted to mention with going back to the PBIS that this is an example that I was alluding to before of a goal that has many different people involved. And the work actually started also an example of a multi-year goal. It actually started last year with Ms. Wilkinson. And it's often first initiated through the PPS Department of Special Education. And she identified the national trainer, Jim Wright. Now, to make that happen across 4 buildings and have Mr. Wright be able to access all of our teams, that involved Ms. Slocum. So in order to make the goal happen, we have to be able to have the funding to do across the buildings. And so that training started last spring. It continued this fall, and then the 4 principals actually all took over. And our elementary principals were the lead getting to the next stage, which is the development of the matrix, and then putting it into the child language and putting it out. So it's actually a goal that is shared by very many people, and moving right now this year targeted at our elementary level. So just thought I would illustrate how many layers are involved in executing some of the goals.
So I was just going to ask that. I see the matrix for the younger levels. Are there the same kind of posters in the upper grades now?
There will be.
There will be, but
That's
not
part
yet.
of next year because there's a few reasons for that. There's a better developed code of conduct. Normally, like students in the middle school, high school level are accustomed to understanding what their agenda and handbook rules are. There's also developed incident reports at that level. So the greatest need right now to begin the alignment, we identified as being K through 5, and it's also a good place to roll it out because then as the students roll up to the next grade level, they're familiar with it. There's a lot of research around the benefits for students when a school district organizes around the theme, and all 4 principals selected the respect, responsibility, and relationships. And we were giving a shout out to Dr. Stapanza because for those of you who are up back to school night, that happens to be one of the ways that she really likes to express the work that she does with students and faculty. And it really matched the training that Jim Wright provided. So they will be developing the matrices, but they're not at that step yet. Right now, their building team is still organizing because all of the rules get developed by a group working together cooperatively.
Okay. And is there a common, I know, I love the fact that we're keeping records and we are saying what works for a child, because every, form of quote-unquote discipline or behavior modification, some things work for kids and some don't, and what have we tried before and what really works for this child, and if that can follow that child, I would love that, because sometimes, you have teachers that are so successful with some students that have a certain personality versus others. So if we can really keep a record of what works for a particular student, I think that's, or what hasn't worked, I think that's wonderful. Are we using, and I see we're using that kind of language, are we using a similar, like I know in the lower grades some move the clothespin and some, give a timeout and some have a, is there a consistent kind of, or are we trying to get away from that kind of behavior? And
That's the class.
Just use this because we're,
Okay.
We're trying to push towards the positive reinforcement as opposed to the consequence. However, that was a question of the staff as well. How do we make sure that we're being consistent with consequences? So the goal for PBIS is the positive and the positive being consistent, and the consequence piece is is a next step in our process.
If there's something I could ask the board to take away from this discussion, it's really the major philosophical shift is about creating a set of expectations of what students should be doing rather than making a set of rules of what they should not be doing. That's really the biggest cultural shift about bringing in a PBIS program. It makes expectations very clear and positive rewards for following those expectations. It's not a list on the wall of things students shouldn't be doing, it's a list of what they should be doing. It's parallel to the way we assess our teachers. When we brought in that Danielson rubric, the best thing about it was making the expectations very clear to all teachers K-12 of what good teaching is. Now we have a rubric for students and a set of guidelines for students that universally say, this is the expectations we have for you while you are on school grounds.
I love it. And I'm sure we're all cognizant of the fact that some students could get a card every day, and some students might fall through the cracks because they're either shy or they're, so I'm sure we're kind of...
We look for those kids to find something.
Right.
Because you want them to feel good about themselves. That's the whole point.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Sapienza?
Good evening. I would like to echo Dr. Toscano's point of thank you for giving us the time to be able to talk to you about the great things that we're doing at our schools and some of the things that we're really proud of. So In support of goal number 1, where we're focusing on extraordinary student focus, this year we've established a goal at the middle school focusing on creating a common understanding with our staff, and that's including all of our staff, our teachers, our guidance counselors, teachers, assistants, and paraprofessionals, the developmental characteristics of the adolescent learner, and the implications for building relationships in our classroom instruction. It is our belief that all of the decisions we make on how we educate and support our middle school students really is rooted in being developmentally responsive to this unique and I like to think exciting and critical time in their lives. We believe it's necessary to take the time to ensure that all members of the middle school staff share a common understanding, language, beliefs about the needs of our students as we evaluate our middle school program. The work towards this goal has actually already begun, where our teachers have been involved in professional development. As staff, they've been engaged in working in groups to become proficient in one of the 5 developmental characteristics of our students: their social and emotional well-being, their physical development, psychological development, cognitive, and the great research that we now have access to in terms of their brain development. Staff has immersed themselves in the research based on their topics, and they're going to turnkey what they've learned actually in just 2 weeks. It's supposed to be next week, but due to the snow days, we pushed it back a little bit. And they're going to turnkey what they've learned with their colleagues to provide us all with that comprehensive understanding of the overwhelming challenges and changes that our students face. As additional actions this year, the middle school staff is learning about the New York State Middle School Essential Elements, which is found in Regents Board policy. And we're going to use that as a framework to really align our work. Additionally, the staff is going to engage in a book talk. I actually brought up a copy of our book, which is what every middle school teacher should know. This is the 3rd edition, written by David Brown and Trudy Knowles. This book covers 4 pivotal topics that we will cover. Who is the middle school teacher? Who are our students? What does the research tell us about effective middle schools? And how can our classrooms best meet their needs? This goal will be measured by having the administrators collaborate on this initiative using a process to look for evidence of shifts in the instructional practices we see in our classrooms. Specifically, the administrators will be assessing teacher language, instructional strategies reflected in our lesson plans and classroom assignments and activities. We'll also seek for examples of change in our teacher beliefs, perspectives, dialogue, and the relationships that they're building with our students. As a result of this professional development, we believe it will reflect a greater understanding and connection to adolescent learning. Looking ahead, as this goal is implemented, we plan to use this common foundation of our students' needs to review all of our school practices and create a school where our students are feeling connected, valued, and known every day when they show up to our middle school. So that's really the goal, like I said, that we've been focusing on and immersing our staff in, and some great work has been happening there.
Questions? I have a question. I was trying to write down some stuff. Sure. You're faster than my hand. Sitting carpal tunnel. Can you give me an example, or us an example of something from the beginning of the school year to now where you've seen a shift in either the belief or the instruction? What has been one shift that has occurred so far?
Sure.
Or more than one?
I think really from the first day of when I started working with the teachers is reflecting on some of our current practices. So I think that, I'm trying to think of one, I had an interesting one that just actually happened today where a teacher came to me to talk to me about her EEE grant. And one of the things that she was writing about was flexible seating. She really wants to change the layout of her classroom, getting away from desks and rows. And when she showed me her work, she had started to cite the research that she had found about the physical development of the adolescent learner and how important it is for our students not to sit for very long periods of time, to be able to have that opportunity to move, the way that their bodies are growing and changing so rapidly, and how quite uncomfortable they are when they're sitting down. So, you know, that was just a small piece that I was very excited about today, where I see the teachers starting to internalize, and we're really starting to have those conversations of what do we believe in. So, and rooting that in some of our research and our best practices. So I think the dialogue, as far as how teachers are thinking about how they're educating their students, I've seen some changes there.
So carry on, because I was actually going to ask some questions, Becky. So I'm glad she asked it. But going forward, so when you meet in a week and you sit down, are you collaborate and get all you brainstorm, you get all these together? Are you going to earmark like 5 maybe strategies, and then go forward with that and then measure them to kind of get an idea of, you know, whether they work or, you know, their relevance?
Sure, a couple of pieces. So part of the teacher's responsibilities in their group is not just talking about the characteristic, but the implications in the classroom. So when they talk about their social development, their cognitive development, the brain research, they're talking about explaining it, but then also what does that look like in a middle school classroom. So they will each be sharing strategies that they come across in their research that really support that developmental characteristic. And additionally, this work is also being done to really be our why. As we look towards some changes, as we're looking at our master schedule, as we're looking towards seeing if we can add different things and really maybe take a look at some things we're doing that we don't know if we necessarily believe in anymore, that's the important piece of this work. So it's the implications of the strategies in the classroom, but it also becomes the backbone of why we're doing what we're doing.
And then you're going to carry that building wide. It's not like each individual teacher is going to come to you with their, you know, I'm not even thinking of the right
characteristic.
Correct.
No, they are turnkey to the whole group. So we're going to be doing it at a faculty meeting and you know, going to our next grade level if we need a couple of times to get through it.
Interesting. Thank you.
Just for clarification too, would you say that the shift is not necessarily what the students are learning, but how they're learning, or not what they're teaching, but how teachers are teaching?
I would say it's really all of it. It's going to be what they're learning as well. You know, part of the research in the book also talks about that interdisciplinary piece. So how our middle school students best learn when they can see the connections amongst the disciplines. So it's really all of it. How, what, and what.
Okay. I will again oversimplify and say that one of the things that we set out to do when we had vacancy for the principalship is to bring in a leader who truly understood the adolescent learner and made sure that the focus of this building was on our students and the time they're living now. There is a difference between a middle school and a junior high. And this is a middle school, and we want to make sure that we are all employing that philosophy, the middle school philosophy, and teaching children where they are now. And we want to make sure that the middle school environment is structured around developmental level and in touch with the whole child. I have seen shifts in this very short period of time from the leadership, from the faculty, and the students responding in kind. And we are heading down the right path of where I feel we need to be ultimately. And there is still work to do. This is very early in the learning process for the faculty, but I think we have already seen dividends and we will continue to see growth in that area where we have an understanding that this is a middle school and that's where we're teaching children. We're not simply preparing them for their transition to the high school. That is a piece of the puzzle, but it is not the whole game.
So kind of what I was going to say a little bit, I was going to talk about when we were the interview process with you, kind of were talking about bridging the gap between the adolescent learner and the middle school child mindset into the high school level. And although I don't have children in the middle school yet, I have heard wonderful things about how between the Chromebooks, the group learning, how the kids get the module desks and they kind of open them and turn them and they're collaboratively thinking and testing their mind to think in a group setting, and they bring that to the high school, and then, you know, Ms. Brzezinski, she takes that and then she runs with it, and it's, by the time they get to college, I know I feel like I'm in college by some time now, but I'm not. That's what it was when we got there. It wasn't about reading the textbook, regurgitating something and spitting it back out. It was sitting in a group, collaborating, and getting to an end result that was going to, a hypothesis that was true. And that's kind of what I see here in the middle school now in the short years I'm doing. So a great job of setting a goal so early and achieving it. And Dr. Bosser kind of stole it, but
I'm sorry.
Glad we're thinking alike.
I should have anticipated your remarks.
Perfect. So great job.
So I would definitely say ditto to that. We did look for someone just who had those goals in mind. It's really tough when we're looking at goals and we want to see somebody moved a year in their reading level. And we can say, oh, look, there's the data to say someone went up a year in their reading level. But what we're really talking about with some of these goals are the steps that it takes before we start looking at course selection, before we start looking at eligibility things before we start, is really changing everybody's mindset to understanding time management of a 6th grader, or organizational skills, or the tools that they need when they first come to a high school or a middle school. So it's really, that's hard to measure, changing the culture. So it's not as easy to say, oh, here's what we're gonna look at, and you tell us if you achieved that. It's really what we're talking about, even with the positive behavior intervention, is really a change in the way we look at students and in what we do, and then bringing it into practice, and then the year after that, looking at things that we can measure that's effective. So I appreciate the steps that we're taking to then be able to get this really great measurable data that these steps make a difference. But the beginning is the beginning.
Absolutely. And that's absolutely how I look at it. It's really the foundation that will lead us through all of those changes that we're looking to make as to, again, the why we're doing it.
Right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to add one thing. I know Mrs. Hull mentioned that you were behind the 3 R's. So I can see by what you're saying how the shift that you want to do in the middle school, or that you've been undertaking in the middle school, it does back up against respect, responsibility, and relationships. So I feel like how you're running the classroom, what your expectations of the teachers are, the changes for the students, I feel like those 3 are represented in that. So thank you for that. I think that's great. I can see the vision with that. Through the changes. And I have one more question, which may be off topic a little bit, but did you implement teaming this year in the middle school or not yet?
Teaming is in 6th grade in the middle school, and we're looking towards next year to see if it's something we can do for 7th and 8th.
What has been your feedback from parents for teaming in 6th grade?
It's been very positive. I think that the parents feel that there is more ability for the teachers to collaborate. So whether it's just on assignments or tests or homework, they really have that opportunity to speak and plan and address the same students. So they all share the same group of students, so they're able to really make, I think, like a little bit more manageable. So that's been some of the feedback that I've received.
And what about teacher feedback?
Yes, the teachers appreciate the common planning time, the ability to work with their colleagues. I think that as we move forward, this is the infancy of teaming. There's so much more potential. So as I look to the future, I think as far as professional development for our teachers to how to maximize that potential will be coming.
Good evening. Like my colleagues before me, the goals set at John Glenn High School are aligned to the district mission and support the goals adopted by the members of the Board of Education. As Mrs. Hull mentioned, it really takes a lot of manpower to sit down and kind of figure out what are our goals this year, what are our priorities, and we have many, many at the high school as we continue to grow and enhance. As we have, as the team identified and developed goals at John Glenn High School, Mr. Cole, Mr. Coletti, and I worked in concert with all the members of the leadership team here, because we can't get it done alone, to identify a plan of action to ensure that our goals could be achieved and would result in an enhanced educational experience for the students at John Glenn High School. I firmly believe in the value of each of the goals that we identified, and the synergy of the team is just really so tremendous, and I know that I will be giving Dr. Sapienza a shout out too, as I share how she has shared something with me that has helped me roll out a goal at the high school. But tonight I would like to share a little bit about what is being done at the high school to support the board goal of extraordinary student focus and expansion of successful programs, as it relates specifically to the one-to-one Chromebook initiative, which is in its first year at the high school. So while not a new initiative to the district, certainly new in its implementation this year at the high school. Also mindfulness and the district initiative of educating the whole child. And who is that child at the high school? That is our millennial. Who are they? How do they learn? And how can we best prepare them for post-secondary endeavors? So I think, Mrs. Freed, you alluded to the fact that it's about shifting a mindset, and it really starts with the awareness phase with the goal. And as the principal of the high school, it's incumbent on me to provide that professional support to the faculty, staff, students, and parents as the high school community continues to embrace and implement the above-mentioned initiatives. To do so effectively, I must first, as you mentioned, cultivate just an awareness. Like, what is mindfulness? What is the Chromebook Initiative? Who is this adolescent learner, this millennial? This is done in stages and in a variety of ways. So first and foremost, whenever I engage in a captive audience of any stakeholder group, I use this as an opportunity to educate them about one or all of the initiatives that we are embarking on at the high school. So examples of these opportunities include department meetings, faculty meetings, shared decision-making meetings, PTA meetings, student assemblies, the Principal's Advisory Committee. I have a group of teachers at the high school that serve as the Principal's Advisory Committee, a Student Principal Advisory Committee. I share with them the goals, the vision, and all of these initiatives. And anytime I engage in a pedagogical conversation with a teacher during a pre or post observation conference. So as an aside, just as we talk about some of these initiatives, all of our faculty and department meeting agendas are shared through Google Classroom. I also just today, for example, met with the summa cum laude students to discuss graduation. They're working on an initiative that I'll share at a later date. But as we began to meet and discuss, we decided, well, how are we going to get this information out? We created a Google Classroom and started sharing a document. While I'm sitting here, one of the students is showing me pictures and video footage of that meeting, so I'll upload that onto Google Classroom. So that's just an example of how we're trying to really inculcate this new awareness into the entire culture at the high school. Again, for example, each agenda that we create, and when I work in concert with the district admin team, for any meeting, we try to include a quote that is germane to mindfulness, to integrating technology into the classroom, to the adolescent learner. So we'll start off with a quote, a TED Talk video, an article, anything that will relate to it to, again, spread awareness. At the last faculty meeting, just was February, last week, I don't even know where we are with the snow dates, but one of the resources, aside from starting off with a quote on mindfulness, one of the resources that I presented to the staff for the first time, they just saw it, was the SAMR model that I learned from having discussion with Dr. Sapienza. I'll pass out a copy for you, or thank you, Dr. Tostano. The SAMR model, what is it? So I can't talk to the faculty, how are you integrating the SAMR model into your instructional decision-making without them understanding what it is. And so this will guide my future discussions with the staff about how to integrate technology into the classroom so that it redefines student learning. So they just received this at the last faculty meeting, which, was it this Monday or last Monday? This Monday? Okay, so, sorry. At the next faculty meeting, I will ask them to look it over. I will give them a pre-survey to ask them, like, how are they using technology in their instruction, and then we'll have some time to look at the SAMR model to discuss ways that they can augment their instructional delivery, and then a post-survey, and continue to assess the way in which they're looking at how they deliver instruction and how they continue to enhance their use of technology in the classroom. So that's one example. Time is spent at each meeting, faculty meeting, department meeting, discussing the implementation of the initiatives that we talked about, the sharing of best practices. The district coordinators and I will start each department meeting, Mr. Coletti and Mr. Cole, saying, can two members of the respective departments share a best practice? And they have to talk about it. And sometimes they share a practice that they tried that's new, that maybe didn't go the way that they thought it would go, and we talk about the whys, and we sort of collaborate. Another teacher might say, I tried it this way, you might want to do that. So that collaboration is usually centered around technology and keeping in mind mindfulness, keeping in mind the whole child. Faculty members are encouraged to visit their colleagues' classrooms to see the implementation of the new initiatives. So, for example, one of our teachers implemented the Google Expeditions for the first time and heard that another faculty member in that department was also doing it. So she sat in as a student to see it from that vantage point before she rolled it out for the first time. So there's definitely increased collaboration and peer visitations in that regard. Mr. Colletti, Mr. Cole, myself, and the district coordinators really underscore the importance that these are not initiatives in isolation, rather they work in concert, and there is a high degree of relatability. So, for example, at Superintendent's Conference Day this past November, we presented a workshop to the faculty entitled The Adolescent Learner. So here is an example of how all three initiatives were supported in that presentation. While the topic addressed the initiative of being responsive to the whole child, who the adolescent learner is, the presentation was done with the Chromebook initiative in mind. I, as the lead learner, find each opportunity to model how to deliver instruction using the Chromebook so that the faculty can experience the learning and accessing of new content from the vantage point of a student. So our faculty meetings, the faculty bring their Chromebooks. All of the agendas are shared out through Google Classroom, and they have to access it that way. So oftentimes I'm kind of learning with them, little tricks, and we learn from one another, and that's the beauty. At this presentation, the staff again was asked to bring their Chromebooks to the presentation. We created a presentation, shared it out through Google Classroom. We began with a 2-minute mindfulness exercise and then discussed how that practice can be used in the classroom and also how the professional themselves can use it maybe when getting harried throughout the day. We then asked the faculty to access a prompt at the beginning of the presentation using a Google form. Describe the typical day of a high school student. Time was then given to the faculty to discuss with a partner, and then we were able to view all of the responses that they had submitted through Google Classroom. So again, modeling and illustrating for them, click of a button. It was an anonymous response, but here's what you all had to say about the life of a typical high school student. What did you learn from one another? And it was really eye-opening for the faculty. And again, how can you use that Google form in your classroom to click, get a sense of what your students know about question 1, and then use that to differentiate instruction or to just keep running records of their performance and so on and so forth. There are plenty of things that they can do with that. So this was designed, again, to demonstrate for the faculty how they can ask students a question in class and use Google Forms to assess and diagnose student learning. We also embedded videos and articles about the various aspects of the adolescent learner throughout the presentation and formatively assessed how that presentation, how does now what you know about the adolescent learner impact your instructional decisions. And the faculty had 5 minutes to respond, and again, click of a button. Wow, I never realized that they're running from the football field to a job to this, and now I'll think my homework assignment, or I'll have flexibility during Newsday Band Festival about giving a test the next day. So they really were getting a more whole child view, because at the high school level it can be very departmentalized. So really at the end of the year, I'm really looking to assess progress in terms of mindset and just instructional practices by evaluating the extent to which Google Classroom has been embedded into the instructional program. And I'll glean this information in both formal and informal ways through classroom visits, peer observation, evidence of active implementation. And really just assessing the staff ability to describe how they can use the Chromebooks as it relates to the SAMR model. What is mindfulness? How can you use it in the classroom? And just their ability to talk about it more comprehensively. That will help them when they're designing lessons for the students. Over the next few years, it's the goal of the high school and the district team to incrementally increase the capacity of the staff to fully embrace and implement the above-mentioned initiatives designed to improve the overall experience for the students, and then provide the staff with customized professional development along the way, because each staff member is going to get to their own place at their own time, and to support them where they are. Thank you.
Questions? with staff members getting to their own place at their own time, are there any staff members, and I'm not even asking this judgmentally at all, where they feel like this is inhibiting their classroom instruction? I'm sure that some love this and want to adopt it right away and run with it. Are there any teachers that are not even less enthusiastic, but saying that this is hindering their traditional teaching in any way?
I haven't found somebody that is adamantly opposed or finds that it's inhibiting. I think it's more like, how can I do this? So even last year, it was Ms. Gorman, Ms. Fine, Ms. Albrecht, and Mr. Tranquino. Through a professional development organization, we surveyed the staff with, over 50 questions survey about technology in the classroom. Where are you? I think one was, I don't know how to do it. 2 is I can do it. 3 is I can teach it. And they kind of assessed themselves. And then we looked at the data and then customized the professional development groups. And believe it or not, most of the staff members kind of underrated themselves and are doing far more than they realize. But I think it's more like, oh, it's that easy, I can do that. So, for example, today I had a post-observation conference with a teacher, and the lesson went wonderfully, and the students learned. And I said, now let's talk about how we can begin to integrate Google Classroom and technology into this lesson, because in 2 years from now, the students coming into your classroom are going to come in with Chromebooks. And I'm not necessarily saying you have to use it all the time, but you need to be able to say, how can I begin to incrementally embed this into my repertoire so that by the time they're coming, I feel ready to meet them where they are. So I haven't, again, found somebody to say, nope, this isn't going to work. It's more a matter of, well, how?
No, I still have Mrs. Weiss. I have it.
That's my goal with my explicit detail. No questions.
I'm still my
Questions or questions?
I just want to say, I get it. I got to see it tonight. Starting from Harwood over to high school, it's a transition. There's a start, there's a start and there's an end result, and I love it. And I'm excited for Elwood, and I think that they're in a great place, and race to excellence has no finish line. Is that the catchphrase?
I heard that.
Yeah, me too.
All right. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Eileen Kemp.
Hang on one second. Did you formulate, or are you okay?
I guess kind of a combination of things. So you have this, the faculty meeting, whereas before, so they still have the department meetings, correct? And I love the idea that now you do the best practices, because I know you have a great group of teachers in the high school, and I see that collaboration going back and forth. I love the fact that you mentioned about having a child that was in the band for 4 years, and they'd be sitting out in the cold for, I'm sure Julia can appreciate that also, then they would have the test the next day, and so I love that kind of communication. In going along with that, I guess I hope I can say this, come across, you're talking about mindfulness and extraordinary student focus and educating the whole child. With that, are you looking more at the socially aspect of in the high school and incorporating that into the academic end of it and how they can better learn, or have you assessed where are we in terms of the way our kids are learning, almost kind of like I guess what Dr. Sapriano explained with the middle school, in that trying to understand, and I think Dr. Bossert, you had touched on it, where the learning today is, the child today is different than the child, and you touched on it when you were talking about the millennium. I don't know if you could give an example of maybe something, and I might be just 5 thoughts too far, and I apologize.
I think something else to add, and this is really just a snapshot of a lot of work that we're doing that really connects to the adolescent learner. Part of the creation of the superintendent's conference day presentation came about, was derived because of what Dr. Sapienza was doing, and to continue with that continuity. I know Mrs. Hall was speaking about PBIS, and that it's really been fully executed now at the elementary school, but we are too in the process of finalizing almost our matrix, and we have a PBIS team that's comprised of faculty members that really is being steered by our school psychologists, and talking about coming up with a common language and just reinforcing the positive behaviors. Who are these students? They're high school students. They're going to make goofy choices from time to time, but they're still these little beings, and we need to be mindful of that. I'm constantly at every faculty meeting starting off with, each faculty meeting starts off with our vision statement, a quote related to mindfulness, and then just a thank you for your collaborative efforts this last month. And I list probably 10 to 15 events that took place that a chemistry teacher may not realize that is going on in the music department. The music department is now aware of all the athletic goings-ons. I really try to illustrate and capture for the faculty that when kids leave your English classroom, they go into a social studies classroom, then they go into Gazette, then they go into the cafeteria, and then they're leaving for senior priv, and then they maybe leaving and going to their job, and just being mindful of all of the things that are impacting our students today. Add to that technology. The adolescent learner, who they are. During that presentation was a TED Talk on the millennials. Who are these new people? Everybody has such negative things to say about them, but they have such wonderful creativity, industrious spirit, and how do we capture that potential and really propel them to the next level? And it's about being excited by who they are and what they can produce versus, resisting it. So I'm constantly, I think, trying to, walk the fine line between the content and the academics, and also reminding the faculty that the high school students are little people too.
I love that, because I feel that sometimes, we are so aware of what certain age groups are going through, and then at the high school it's like they're mini adults and you better get into college, and it just, the whole focus is so different. So the fact that you're pointing that out and people are becoming more aware of the fact that they're not mini adults, especially with open enrollment, you're going to have such differing pressures from a 10th grader taking that same course versus an 11th grader versus a 12th grader, and you might have all three of those in your classroom. And how does a teacher handle that? And how do they understand that they're also taking the SAT and they're also doing college visits on the weekends? And I think, again, it's a philosophy change, and then maybe because of that philosophy change, we'll see different advice with course selection, maybe less dropped classes, because the expectation is presented and students know what they're walking into. So I think that, again, it's a step to different things that we are more easily measured. But first we have to get everybody on the same page that, it's not just your class. It's going to work. It's helping younger siblings. It's, all those things that high school, it's trying to figure out if you're going away to college, all those things. So the philosophy change happens first. It's hard to measure.
I think we're seeing that across every building. You're doing an assessment of culturally, where you were and where we're at now and where we want to go. And, I agree with Julie on that. I think, you need to do that. You need to recognize.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more comment, but it's not a question. I just want to say that I appreciate, and I'm sure that tons of parents at home do too, that the Chromebook initiative is not just handing everybody a Chromebook and saying you can use it for research, notes, whatever, that we're actually using it to enhance classroom instruction. So we're really making the most of handing everybody a Chromebook rather than just saying, wonderful, we have a one-on-one Chromebook initiative. So I really appreciate how we're expanding upon that, we're not just giving it to them, but we're changing the classroom instruction with it. So.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you again for inviting us here to kind of give you a little more perspective about our thoughts behind as we were writing our goals. The administrative goal that I will be sharing with you tonight is supporting and enhancing existing academic programs at John Glenn High School by increasing our dual enrollment program offerings. Dual enrollment courses are college-level courses offered at the high school level where students pay a reduced tuition fee to receive college credits upon successfully completing the course. And for different schools, that may be a different grade average at the end, but they will know that ahead of time. Students leave their dual enrollment course with a transcript from the cooperating institution. That does not get generated from us, that comes from the actual college. Currently at John Glenn High School, we have a partnership with Suffolk County Community College for 2 of our technology courses, Production Systems and our engineering course. And we also have a partnership with St. John's University for 2 of our world language courses. Our goal is to provide students with increased opportunities to receive college credits prior to leaving the high school. Students enrolled in these courses do not have to take the course for college credits, so it doesn't become what we call another singleton. It runs within the existing course. So in a production systems course, there may be 20 students in the course, but only 5 of them opt to take the course for credit, so it runs within itself. Our process began with collecting data from local colleges currently offering dual enrollment classes regarding the cost, student benefits, which can be access to resources at the college. For Stony Brook, it might be to let students into events at Stony Brook University, so there's different things that each of the colleges offer. One school we looked at offers some scholarship money if the student ends up going there in certain grades, so those are all things that we're evaluating in the process. And then we also have to speak with the schools about the teacher qualification requirements. What is it that our teachers have to have in order to teach through that organization? We will also investigate what courses colleges are currently partnering with high schools to offer for credit, as this makes the approval process for our courses go a little bit faster if they're already offering it with another high school. We will be looking at what courses other high schools on Long Island are currently offering for dual enrollment credit and speaking to our colleagues in our respective roles about the success of those programs and which ones they feel are offering the most benefit to their students. Dual enrollment courses will be identified which align to the current course offerings in the high school catalog. Once courses are selected, building and district administration will identify the teachers who will be teaching the courses and begin gathering the required documentation for the application process. So I can speak to the process we went through with technology for Suffolk. That involves transcripts from the teacher, a resume, their course experience teaching at the high school. So there's a number of things that we have to gather with the teachers, and then also we have to look at the syllabi for the course and align that with the college program. We'll submit the course and the instructor credentialing applications to the colleges for approval. The high school guidance counselors and our different department members will meet, they'll review the course requirements for students, they'll plan for promoting the courses among the student body, we'll update the course guide to reflect any additional course offerings and then any information parents may need to know in making that decision with their child. We will assess the success of this goal by expanding our course offerings from 4 to 6 in the high school. In this process, we will also build greater understanding of dual enrollment opportunities and benefits among faculty members, students, and parents.
Questions, board?
I just upset the guy, I guess I'm going to everybody.
No? You have a question?
I think I might have missed something that you said with the dual enrollment with the teacher qualifications on that. So every school has a different qualification that the teacher must meet, correct? Is that what you were saying?
So as we've begun, obviously it's January, we've already started working towards some of this. So as we've begun the process, most schools it's actually within their departments at the college. So you have to speak to the math department separately from the science department, separate from the technology, business, etc. So you have to work with those people, and there's representatives at each school that they put you in contact with.
Is it, I guess the next question I have, is it something that's just such a big a laborious process that, you know, it's just, or is it a matter of certification? Like in AP, you go for a week or 2 weeks and you get certified as an AP teacher. Is it kind of the same pattern, or do you really have to have like a master's in, you know, quantitative, you know, analysis to, you know, teach statistics on college levels per se?
As far as we've gotten so far, it does vary depending on the department of the school, but a master's is in that content area is preferred. Experience, if you've been teaching the course for 10 years, clearly you have a great deal of experience. If our course aligns with the college's course, then that's something that they're going to look at with us too. So it's a little bit more personalized process. I don't think it's quite a rubber stamp. Just
right, it's not as black and white. It's kind of like, okay.
Just one of the hardest things I've found from being a board member is getting a recommendation for something, not knowing much about it, trying to learn about it, and supporting it. And hearing overall tonight, I think Teachers College is definitely something that was brought to us as a board. We supported it. Hoped it was going to be something that was beneficial to the district and the students and the teachers. And I think after hearing you speak and the other principal speaks tonight, definitely Teachers College has brought something to Elwood that maybe we were lacking and maybe we're going to continue to keep growing with and just keep taking it to new heights. I think it's great that we have a basis point to go off of and something to kind of all focus around. Everyone's on the same playing field now, from Harley up to the high school, so I think that's great.
With the dual enrollment, the reason why you would take a dual enrollment course versus an AP course?
So for starters, if you look at the courses that we offer it with currently, I looked at our technology course when we first wanted to do this because it's a group of students who have interests that we don't have APs for. Now we actually have the AP Computer Science course, which a lot of our students do take, but we were trying to create opportunities for students where there wasn't already an AP exam. One course, and again, we have not made any decisions, but a course that's commonly offered in other districts around us is pre-calculus. That's not an AP course. So sometimes it might just be that there is no AP alternative. Another one, though, might be that we do run a calculus course and an AP calculus course. If we look to accredit the calculus course, that might be another option for students who were already in that, made that decision not to take the AP. It was a little bit more challenging, perhaps. It goes a little bit further, but they can take the calculus course for credit then. So it's going to be different by department.
So it would be beholden to the student and the parents making that decision whether they were going to pay for that dual enrollment course, because it's going to be more expensive than taking an AP course, correct? So they would have to look to see, well, where do I think I'm going to college? And will this college accept Suffolk Community College credit? Because many of them don't. So they would have to look into that. So you're talking kids that are probably seniors.
Yeah, most of the schools will only allow students that are juniors or seniors. The courses that we'll look at will be for juniors and seniors only.
But they're going in there knowing that wherever they go to school may not take those credits at all.
And it's the same, I guess, with anything that we offer, but we do give them the information where, you know, I know Mrs. Hull has spoken at other board meetings about if you have an idea of what schools you may be looking at, you can go on and look. Colleges that would cooperate with us would, you know, say these are the ones that we know accept our credits, because it is a transcript from that school. So any information that's available for students in terms of transferring would apply to these courses.
So in the language courses, I know you can decide to either take it as a dual enrollment course or take it as an AP course. So how do you guide students as to how we make those choices?
I believe part of how that came about was that they did away with the AP at one point also for that language course, and that's why we brought in the St. John's program, because we wanted them to still have an opportunity.
We did that in French, but not in Spanish. In Spanish,
Italian, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
So I think that it depends on where the child thinks that they're going to go, what level of proficiency they are performing at, and they need to sit with their teacher.
But they can't do both, right? Can they enroll in the dual enrollment and then sit for the AP?
They can do both.
They can sit for the AP.
Yeah.
If they do.
They could make
So
that
then-
choice to do both, and they really have nothing.
It's the same course with the same tests, right?
So the AP exam would be flat fee of like $85, and the college, the dual enrollment is more like
It varies. I mean, the Suffolk was, I think it's about $150 for a 3-credit course or something.
But that's
it
not
can
really
be
why
more.
we're looking at this in order to give opportunities to kids where we don't have an AP, but they can shine
Yes.
because they took a college course in that subject.
Right.
So it makes them more attractive.
Where, I mean, yes, we do have that language program there.
It's a little
bit
tricky with
different,
language, but I see the
But
point
you
with the
can take
others.
both. And the idea behind this goal, at least, is just to increase opportunities for the students where they don't overly lie.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Do we have any dual enrollment classes where our students leave our campus and go on campus elsewhere?
Not for a college credit.
Good evening. I'm going to speak about, just as you mentioned, Teachers College and expansion to the middle school. So our goal number 2, expansion of successful programs, specifically addresses the implementation of Teachers College writing program at the middle school. Some of the objectives behind this initiative were to continue to build on our goal of vertical alignment across the district. It was also to increase the continuity of instruction among classes, and thirdly, to provide continuation of consistent language and strategies for our students. So this goal is actually twofold as it relates to enhancing teachers' practices as well as increasing student proficiency in writing. The work to achieve this goal began last spring with meetings with our middle school teachers to ensure their buy-in and their commitment to this initiative. Our next steps included bringing in teams of teachers to observe writers' workshops in classrooms that are already entrenched in this program. And to do that, we visited a school in Riverhead who has been implemented writers' workshop for 10 years. And we also brought a team of mostly our 6th grade teachers to Boyd so they could actually see students that will be in their classes engaged in this work. Additionally, we ordered the resources for teachers to implement this program in the spring so they would have time to work together and collaborate to familiarize themselves with the program prior to leaving for summer vacation. Department and grade level meetings were dedicated to beginning the process of professional development. We met to review the resources, to talk about the structure of the program, which is critical, and also begin discussions about our own scope and sequence for instructional programs for this year. Additionally, we secured a consultant from Teachers College who came in June and worked with our teachers for a full day, and this person really walked our teachers through the program so they can get an overall understanding of the structure and the model within the writing workshop. And again, over the summer, teams of our teachers came together and they collaborated to continue this work in our curriculum writing projects. Throughout this school year, we have been collaborating during grade level and department meetings. We plan instruction, we prepare resources together, and we discuss our instructional practices. Dr. Sapienza and Mrs. Valley work to ensure that our teachers' schedules afforded them time for common planning. And this has been really critical to this work. Our teachers have time to work together and share the responsibility and build upon this common knowledge and understandings. The language has all been really critical. Additionally, we are following the same model for professional development, which is a coaching model that we use at both Harley and Boyd. So our consultant from Teachers College, her area of expertise is in working with middle school students. And she comes and she provides demonstration lessons. She meets with teachers to help them plan and to assess their students' work. She also coaches our teachers. So as we move through the training process, our teachers are beginning to take on more of the responsibility of initiating lessons and working with small groups of children as our consultant coaches in and gives them on-the-spot feedback. Our reading teachers E&L teachers and special education teachers are all part of this process. They participate in all of the training, and they are present for all of the collaboration and planning meetings. We do this because we have a co-teaching model with our E&L students, our academic intervention services. Portions of that are through a push-in model, and of course our integrated special education classes. So our teachers, as they're going through this process, are also learning and collaborating together to plan and implement co-teaching lessons. So they're looking at a variety of models to effectively co-teach the instruction. In addition to that, our school library media specialist, Mrs. Fife, also participates in all the training. So she has a working knowledge of what is transpiring in the classroom, and she's been instrumental in supporting both the teachers in their work, as well as being able to help out students as they move through the writing process themselves. So, how are we assessing this goal? We are doing this in multiple ways, and it's ongoing. First and foremost, we conduct formal, informal teacher observations, and we spend additional time just visiting classrooms and meeting with teachers and students. During these classroom observations, our administrative team is focused on specific things. One, we are looking at the teacher's implementation of the specific elements of the instructional model that is contained within the workshop model. We are also watching closely to see how students are responding to this instruction. In the classroom, when we're visiting, we are observing students, and we are looking for their ability to apply the strategies that have been taught. We are looking at their stamina in writing. We are also watching to see how they're collaborating with their peers, and we're looking at their volume of writing, and we expect to see that increase over time. This all is evidence of their comfort level, their implementation of the skills and strategies. Additionally, we meet with teachers in an ongoing fashion, and we talk to them about what are their needs, as collectively as a group and individually. This information is used to then inform what the topics will be for our professional development sessions. We will be assessing our students' growth by comparing writing samples from the beginning of the year and the end of the year. Throughout the process of the implementation of units of study, we do, at the beginning of a unit, we have on-demand writings, just as we do at both Hawley and Boyd. So students are given a writing prompt, and they just write. They're given the same, a similar writing prompt at the end of the unit, and we're looking for the craft, the techniques, and the strategies that were taught throughout the unit, and looking at growth that way as well. So, the other thing that we will do at the end of the school year, we meet with our consultant and with our teachers, and together as a team, we will collaborate and we will identify our instructional goals for next year and what our next steps are. I am very pleased to say already we are hearing from teachers that they are seeing a big difference in the students' ability to write for longer uninterrupted periods of time. They are noting that students are applying many of the strategies, particularly incorporating greater details in their writing, being more explicit in their language choices, and really building a larger volume of writing. So those are our initial observations.
Mrs. Fine, did the 8th graders have TC at Boyd? I know the 6th and the 7th graders had it.
No, so our current 7th graders had
is the first.
Is 1 year in 5th grade.
Just in 5th grade. So our 8th graders have never seen this.
It's brand new to our 8th graders, and our 6th graders have, had it for 3 years now. So this is so it's been very interesting because when we do some of our training sessions, part of it is by grade level, but we've had times where we matched groups with multiple grade levels. And another positive note with the program is that some of the things that our 7th and 8th grade teachers are observing our 6th graders already doing in their writing, they're amazed. So they really, you know, it's really helped to say, wow, if they're already doing this, and I'm working with, say, the 8th graders who did not have that exposure, they really feel good about that.
Right. And you didn't just start with 6th grade, you started with the whole school.
Yes, we have the whole school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
And it's just the writing workshop, it's not the reading.
Correct. So the model for instruction shifts at the middle school level for 2 reasons. One, the structure of the school day is very different. So at Boyd and Harley, we have large blocks of time that make it possible for teachers to spend blocks. We do not have that flexibility here at the middle school. So there are various models that we follow Teachers College recommendations, and we work with our consultant. And actually, even prior to this, we met with Lucy Calkins herself and asked about recommendations when we're working in this model at the middle school with an 8-period day. So,
and the social studies teachers, even though there's a lot of writing involved in social studies, they're not pushed into any of this training.
So, yeah, and that's an interesting thing that you brought up, because we kind of went back and forth with that idea. Initially, from stage 1, should we bring them on board? Our 6th grade English teachers are also teaching social studies. That's part of our teaming model. So in that grade, we have a stronger, we have that reciprocity with that understanding across content. We made the decision for year 1 not to bring in the social studies teacher, because the instruction in Teachers College is it's a paradigm shift. So we wanted our English teachers to become more proficient in the model before we bring on the other content area teachers.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Thank you.
Mr. Shanahan?
I will interrupt to thank our directors, but also give a shameless plug while I'm thinking of Mrs. Gorman and her efforts. Next Thursday from 4 to 7 in this building will be our annual STEAM night. There was a lot of planning, a lot of preparation going into creating an excellent opportunity for our K-8 students. Hopefully members of the board will have some time to stop by and see the learning that's taking place. We have a great group of volunteers. We have a whole new set of activities for students to participate in, and I would anticipate it being very well attended and another very productive night to celebrate here in Elwood. And thank you for your efforts to help make that happen. Mr. Shanahan.
Dr. Boss, Board of Education, thank you for having me here tonight, and Happy New Year to you all. My goal started about I guess a number of years ago, but I'd like to thank Ms. Hall for last year, starting it with getting our new textbooks last year for our health students. Part of the coaching model, I always think, is you got to work on your weaknesses. And being here for a number of years, I realized one of the weaknesses we had was in our health education, as far as curriculum, as far as updating our textbooks, online textbooks, and that's where my goal was driven from. And it started, like I said, a number of years ago. I had an opportunity to go out to different schools and see their health instruction, whether it was Sachem, their contemporary youth health curriculum they had in the regular general education health classes. I was very impressed where they were. And obviously you always want to upgrade and make things better for your students and where you're at. That's where we are at today. So Ms. Hall, thank you very much for your support, and the board and Dr. Bossy as well. On a personal note, ladies, thank you so much. I learned so much from you over the last year, and I really appreciate it. Our administrative goal is to implement a new health curriculum for the Elwood Middle School and Johnny's Middle High School. Our current health curriculum is 15 to 20 years old. It has been updated with new material, online research over the years. This past year, we purchased new textbooks and online textbooks as well. Our goal is to develop a new curriculum that would drive our scope and sequence of material that will be covered by our students. We will be incorporating New York State learning standards and addressing relevant and pressing health issues such as e-cigarettes, vaping, and heroin. We also, with the help of Dr. Bosser, on March 13th, we are also bringing a guest speaker into high school with 2 sessions in the middle school March 15th for e-cigarettes and vaping, and with a parent piece at night. So, Doctor, I really appreciate your support as far as that goes, because it is becoming a problem across not only our school, but across Suffolk County and Long Island and our country. When developing new curriculum, we will compare and contrast curriculum from other school districts. We are already in the process of conducting department meetings that effectively target goals and timeline calendars. We will assess the success of this goal by the level of teacher participation in the classroom and the development of our new health curriculum. Ideally, we'd like to complete all work this summer and have it ready by September of next year. And that would be a curriculum for 7-8, and then most of our health kids started in 9th grade and some 10th. So that is our goal for next year. Any questions?
Mr. Shanahan, when do the kids have to take health now? When do they take it?
That's a great question. Currently, we're running health in 7th and 8th grade, currently right now.
So it's a full year?
For the reason we want to move the health from 8th to 7th. And then we have health mostly for the 9th grade, so it'll be 7 and 9.
So it's a full year every other year, 7 and 9.
At the high school, they get a half year course, yes.
It's a half year course.
Yes, at the high school. The middle school is every other day.
Yeah, it's over here.
Oh, so it's half year in both. Okay.
So I think the new curriculum will help us, as far as update our material. We have a new online textbook. It's constantly updated. If you check it, e-cigarettes and the vaping is in there. So I think it's really important for our teachers to have that resource and have exactly what we want in Elwood, whether it's abstinence, what do we stand for? And our curriculum will generate what we're teaching.
Questions?
I had the opportunity, I think when we were accepting the textbook, I really went through each chapter and each module, and I thought it's a good book, and I look forward to catching the curriculum up to, the book and matching it more concisely.
Absolutely.
And I like the fact that with that online, that you can go to current events and bring things in like topics like vaping and stuff that we, would normally not have been able to do. So I really appreciate that. It's like keeping up with the times.
Right, absolutely. There's so much in the online edition, and we can pare it down, we can grow the subject how we want to hear it with for our kids. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Trentino.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about the administrative goals that I have selected to update you on this evening. And we are underway with smart bond projects, and the 3 projects that I'm going to speak to you tonight are all district-wide. These are collaborative projects. Mrs. Laughlin's been on many of these planning meetings, as is Mr. McDonald, and we work closely with our vendor installation team partners on these. The first one I will start with is the wireless network expansion, district-wide project, a large project. Nearly all of the administrative and instructional information resources are digital and accessed over the network by an ever-increasing amount of mobile devices such as Chromebooks, 1,800 Chromebooks in district right now, laptops, iPads, bring your own device, mobile phones, using applications and apps, right? So the wireless network access points are the on-ramps to the network for all these devices. So to that end, the scope of this project or goal was to expand our wireless network from one access point in every classroom, from one access point in every other classroom to one access point in every classroom in the district, as well as other instructional spaces. Over the summer, 82 new access points were installed. Our wireless network now consists of 200 access points, and one of those is right there. That's right above Mrs. Weiss and Mrs. Marcus. And those are the on-ramps that enable our Chromebook initiative, Google Expeditions, all mobile teaching and learning and administrative applications. This is not just a back-end technology. This is absolutely student, faculty, and staff-facing technology that enables all those that I have mentioned and supports many of the goals of my colleagues as well. The success of this goal was measured by the completion of the install and the configuration of the 82 access points onto our existing network, along with the reliable access that we've witnessed with our students working in groups in classrooms, flexible seating, in these spaces here in the library. Any given day, there are dozens of students in here with devices, out in the courtyard, hallways, access to the information in these teaching resources through, in the gym, through these devices, getting on board to the network through the access points. I'm pleased to report it's completed. This project was completed at the end of the summer, so we were ready for the influx of all these new devices, including students with mobile phones doing bring your own device to the classroom. So that was a successful project. It is completed. I'm going to pause there and give you a chance to do questions just on that particular item before we go on to the next.
Questions?
Good.
I want to hear more.
Okay, next. A new telephone system, another district-wide project. This one, phase one, is completed. Goal of the scope of work is to decommission our 25-year-old last century phone system, of which has been out of production for so many years that when anything went wrong with this, the vendor would literally try to find spare used parts around for us to actually implement into our core communication system of the organization. So that alone justifies the project in my mind. We had to migrate from, we had separate phone systems in each building, very inefficient. So now we have a unified, redundant phone system. To date, 125 new phone handsets and 4 telephone servers have been installed to the network, as the network is now the infrastructure and transport for the phone system. It's no longer standalone and separate. It's part of the computer network as well. While not of student-facing technology, certainly, we do gain significant benefits with communication workflow efficiency, unified messaging. My voicemail goes to my email, which is nice to have, certainly, because it's all, again, more in the IT world than it is in a standalone telephone world. Conference calling, dialed by name, rather than looking up the extensions on a piece of paper hanging on your bulletin board, right? I'll just type in a few letters of the last name. 4-digit dialing, not 12-digit dialing. We were doing 12-digit dialing at Elwood High School from the office, from the district's central office. Even text messaging between phones. So it has all these modern telephony features that you would expect to have on a 21st century phone system. So phase one is complete. Phase two, 25 more handsets are coming in soon to be completed. We're going to migrate some of the existing phone lines that we're paying monthly costs on into this system to experience some cost savings. And that is the timeline on phase two, next month or so. But the primary systems are in, the new phone system is up, the old phone system is ready to be forklifted out to the curb soon. So any questions on our phone? Okay. And the last project is security enhancements. Another district-wide goal, we felt better coverage with security cameras and also to enhance entry point security with card access control technology. So presently we have 124 existing cameras in the district with 2 entry point card access swipe technology in place. So the scope of this work includes 97 IP network-attached cameras, once again, and 4 additional DVRs with 22 door access swipes to the network, and the software, of course, to manage all of the above. High school and middle school are about 95% complete. Boyd will be done this week. We moved to Harley, and we have DVR tie-ins, camera software installed, started today, card access lists, back-end management software that needs to be set up, and it's all in progress. So we're getting there. It's a lot of physical work up on the ladders, outside, inside, running the cables, hooking and configuring. So the success of this goal will be measured by the completion of the install and all the remaining equipment and software being up and running. Timeline, I'm going to guess 4 to 8 weeks on this. At the rate they're going, there's a lot of back-end work that's going to get done even after all the cameras and door swipes are in place. A lot of software and IT stuff that goes to.
So the door swipes, Jean, it's your ID card, your staff ID card,
Yep.
swipes it?
Correct.
And that's pretty much complete at the high school?
No.
The door swipes?
So the door swipes are being physically installed, but the back-end system and software tie-ins are not there yet.
Gotcha. Okay, so they're not
We've had
using it
2 already
really.
for a couple of years now, but
Right.
there's one in the district office and one at the back door of Boyd.
So all the any access point into the school from the outside is going to have a door swipe? Is that
We've located certain areas, the typical areas that the teachers are entering through. So for instance, at Boyd, when they go out to that side playground, they were chucking the door open to get back into the building.
Right.
That will no longer occur. They'll actually shut the door.
Shut the
they'll be able
door
to
and
swipe to get
swipe
back in.
with the cafetorium?
Correct. Yep. All those, yeah, with working with the building administration, we were able to locate the key areas that we would need those door swipes in. There's about, I think, 4 in Harley and Boyd, and maybe 6 or 7 at both middle school and high school.
And the rest of the doors that people don't go in frequently
No
are
access.
locked.
All doors are locked at all times, but you'll be able to get in those doors now.
Great,
And
thank
you're
you.
logged when you go in. Who went in, what time they went in, etc.
That's excellent.
So we're installed right now at all buildings. They're just finishing up Boyd right now, and I believe next week they move on to Harley to put their install in. And then once that's installed, we'll be going live.
What about the can I ask a question? What about the cameras? I know we always had a problem with the clarity and the distance on the cameras.
So-
Has that, I'm hoping that that's improved.
So it has. The new cameras are going to be more of a high definition quality. They're IP-based cameras. However, we didn't throw out the old cameras. There are still 124 existing cameras in district that are working and have different variety of clarity and the ability to really discern what's going on in that frame, but they are still working. We've added to that project. We did not forklift those out and put in all brand new cameras in the district.
Did you relocate them based on need? You know, because I know you had some old cameras where you
We absolutely did. So some of those external cameras out in the parking lot, were good to look at the sidewalk, but you could never really see what's going on in the parking lot. So we've absolutely done that.
Can't say where the cameras are, Bridget. No one wants to know
We've
the
been
cameras.
replacing as
We want people to know where the cameras
No one's going to
are.
have the cameras, not where they are.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
within the general fund budget, we replace cameras as they start to stop working. The older cameras.
And again, the camera has a tape, so we can access by tape, but also the head of security has access to by the iPads,
Building
right?
administration, central administration, and security guards all have access to all cameras.
All cameras.
Yes.
Thank you.
And for the students that are watching from homes, we actually have cameras in every square inch of the district. 100% coverage of all grounds.
That's on record now, so it's...
Especially on weekends, right?
Especially at Harley.
Yes.
Except on the 34-yard line.
Thank you.
Well, good, thank you. Thanks very much for having me.
Gene did his presentation on the iPad, just so everyone knows. Everyone else is hard notes, so.
I wanted to include a goal, the goal that was developed for AP Capstone. Any of the 7 key collaborators of this goal could present this. I did want to definitely pay attention to this because it's board goal number 3, and it's one of our goals that is really specifically mentioned as a Board of Education goal. We discussed it when we presented high school programs, and we mentioned some of the things that we will be measuring and assessing, both the success of AP seminars, surveying students, preparations for AP research, successful implementation of AP research next year. Any questions?
That's how you do it.
There you go.
So,
We already asked a million questions about this. It's nothing personal.
I wanted to mention this goal because it really speaks to our district initiatives and the integration of them so that we have a cohesive approach. It brings in our theme of equity, cultural competence, mindfulness, the adolescent learner, and our PBIS program. Each of these goals, again, are multi-layered, involve many of our administrative team members in order to make them happen. And even with all the planning we do, I'm very excited to see when the extra steps happen. For example, with all the layers of PBIS that resulted in the building of the matrix at the elementary level, the development of the video was the next step that the building-based team created. And it was a wonderful way to engage students at an age-appropriate way to really understand it. Mindfulness is something we did a whole district. However, Ms. Brzezinski was the first one to identify a very great trainer to come in and work with faculty. And the theme of the presentation from Dr. Pantalino is, what is mindfulness and what is not mindfulness? So that teachers can begin to get an understanding of it. Her relationship that in bringing him in to work with his former colleagues at the high school, again working with Mrs. Lachlan, we were able to then bring that school district-wide so that he's has presented to each of our faculties. His last presentation will be this month at the middle school, and I understand he will be working with our PTSA as well. Some next steps, some of our PPS staff, Mrs. Sepp and Ms. Lindenbaum are working with me on a course proposal for teachers after school. Building on our cultural competence and our committees, Dr. Toscano and I are collaborating on an after-school course for teachers that will look at culturally responsive teaching practice. So what does a classroom look like that's built on culturally responsive goals? Any questions on this?
Can I just add a comment in that, yes, the board had met recently with our representatives from Syntax talking about refining the format of our newsletter a bit, and the last one went home, and it was completely focused on our STEAM initiatives throughout the district. We're in the process of drafting the winter newsletter, and the focus will be on mindfulness, and a lot of these activities that Mrs. Hull glossed over very quickly, being conscious of the time that we spend here tonight. And each building within the newsletter will feature the different initiatives that are taking place as far as staff development, as well as the practical applications teachers are using in the classroom for mindfulness. And I think the board and the community will really enjoy learning more about how we've taken these lessons and put them into practice.
So I would like to thank you for this opportunity to have a conversation this evening about our goals. I once again want to emphasize the collaborative nature of them. We heard from members of our team this evening, but we did not hear the goals presented from Mrs. Lachlan, Dr. Bossert, Mr. McDonald, Mrs. Wilkinson, Mrs. Valley, Mr. Cole, Mr. Coletti, all involved in this process together. This evening, in the time we've been together, we've presented 10 of our 45 goals. However, I hope this excerpt illustrates the planning, collaboration, and preparation that our team is engaged in with our faculty and staff to support the goals of the Board of Education, to drive our mission forward. And I really just have to mention that it's the holistic nature of our mission statement and the direction that we've been provided by the goals of the Board of Education that's created the conditions to develop these goals that really speak to the social, academic, and emotional needs of students, the culture of our school district, and really creating an outstanding learning environment. So we appreciate the direction and support. So, any questions?
Let me get my list.
Thank you, everybody.
I'm sure I speak for all of us when I thank you all for your time this evening, number one. but also for the hard work that you do every day, and for coming and explaining this to us. We worked with Dr. Bossert, coming together to formulate goals. Given his feedback, we gave him our feedback, and we wanted to see how this looks, what this looks like in practice. Can you explain to us how things change as a result of us coming up with these goals? So you really gave us a great idea tonight about how things are changing. A lot of them are cultural. A lot of them are, you know, the steps that we take. I'm looking forward to the future to see, well, this is what changed based upon this culture change. I think that's really exciting for our future. But I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the hard work that you put into the presentation and the hard work you do every day. So thank you. Any other comments or?
If it's okay, I need some direction from the board on next steps. Typically what we do as a leadership team is evaluate our success on implementing the goals or lack thereof. And part of what we use our goals for in our end-of-the-year conversations is to evaluate next steps and where to go from here. What goals were accomplished, what are multi-year goals, what are the next steps from the goals. And to be candid, we use achievement of goals as a part of how we evaluate each other's performance, you know, as part of our own year-end evaluations. So we would like to have a sense of how the board would like to receive that information about our measurement of goals and our achievement of the goals. So the options are, we can provide a written report in the Friday update with an overview of the goals that we do, and give you a sense of what level of achievement we feel we have received for each of them. Or we can do another formal presentation like this one. Timing is tricky because, as you know, our spring meetings are chock full of nuts and really don't allow for this level of dialogue about a singular topic at the end of the school year. I would probably have to be ushered to my car by security if I asked the leadership team to put something together like this in the month of June, which would be the natural time to do it. So the question for the board is a written overview from the cabinet with input from the team satisfactory as we approach the summer months? Or would the board prefer to have a year-end synopsis in the early fall about how we feel we achieved prior year's goals as we're working on setting the goals for next year? We can do those things in concert.
So does anyone have any comments about that?
If you did the latter, how would you do the merits then?
When we are meeting to use this data to help inform evaluations, it's internal dialogue that we're having, which is something that is a regular process that we will follow. The time-consuming part is putting together a presentation like this in order to make it to the board at a public meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, whatever the board's desire is, we'll be using this information to have end-of-the-year conversations and evaluate our own work. Reporting that out can be written form, and you'll receive it during the summer months for review, or we can plan a presentation for either August or the early fall.
Would the written form be public?
No.
So here's
weekly updates that are sent to the Board of Education, as you know, are for internal communication with the board.
So staff is evaluated prior to the end of the year, prior to the end of the school year.
If I'm being candid, year-end evaluations for the administrative team tend to be written during the summer months.
During summer months. Superintendent evaluation occurs prior to July 1st.
Correct, by contract, yeah.
So when we look at goals and whether we accomplished our goals, we would need them in June, written from you, correct? This is how we...
I think it would be fair for the board to expect an overview from me regarding the board goals.
Okay.
Don't imagine the board is expecting this type of detail on 45 independent goals.
Correct. So as long, to me, and chime in if you disagree, it's important that I think that we present to the public what we accomplished during the year, whether that's in the beginning of next school year as a result and in collaboration with next year's goals. Here's what we accomplished and here's where we want to go. I would be more than happy with that, because the most logical time to present that would either be in June, which is a very busy month for everyone, after the budget process. But June tends to be a very busy month. I just don't want it to get lost where we're not touting what you guys accomplished for the year.
If I may, I think the ideal is to have an early fall presentation, whether that be September or the first week in October, where we're talking about what we accomplished this school year and parlaying that to the goals for the current school year.
I agree.
Saying, based upon this data, we have set these goals for the coming year.
I agree. As long as we're touting what got accomplished and what we're proud of.
And that's a project that we commonly ask the leadership team to focus on over the summer as goals.
And we have time.
Oh, we hope to.
But that doesn't mean that you're not going to do the written prior to the end of the year so that we can utilize that, correct?
Yeah, I think the board needs to bring
Okay.
feedback
Yeah.
on.
And Matt, it's not, I'm sorry to interrupt you, excuse me. And is that is not going to be public?
Well, the answer to your question is internal communication between the superintendent
yes.
board is that, but it is a foilable document.
Okay.
And then the presentation in the fall would be recapping some of that stuff.
Yeah. No, I like the presentation in the fall. I think that it's a good launching pad to go forward.
Sigh of
Thank you.
relief. Okay, so we're up to our president's remarks. Can we let the team go? So residents' remarks are limited to items voted on or discussed. Well, we didn't vote on anything, but discussed in this business meeting. So it's anything that we discussed in this business meeting. Can be commented upon. Persons wishing to speak should identify themselves and any organization they represent. Comment should be kept as brief as possible, may not exceed 3 minutes. Public discussion of matters relating to staff, students, or others at which their reputations, privacy, or right to due process could in some way be violated is prohibited. Anybody have any resident remarks? Resident remarks? Once, twice, and going, gone. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting of January 11th? Mrs. Marcus, seconded by Mr. Tomio. All in favor? Enthusiastic for. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.